It's the big game. It's finally time. We got the last two teams standing, and just as we all predicted, it's Chiefs 49ers. I think what that conspiracy that everybody had, where it had to be Ravens, what was it, Ravens Niners?
Yeah,
didn't really pan out. So
purple and red.
At least we get to see Pat Mahomes try and win another one, right?
Dude, I feel like I got to be done betting against Patrick Mahomes at this point. Like, my heart's telling me I want the 49ers to win. But I don't know if my brain's going to let me. Let's get into this, guys. What is up, guys? Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, we've reached the final game of the season. We've been at this for a while. What is this, week 22 technically? You know, we did shows every week, and then we did 20 best ball shows this last summer. I'm gonna enjoy a little bit of time off before we dive deep into UFL, XFL, and USFL together. Now we're gonna get into that. We also do have an additional show on top of this for the YouTube members. We're going to do Saturday morning. Ellie and I it'll be pre-recorded. It won't be live, but we'll post at midday Saturday, where we do a full build show. We're going to build all our lineups. We're going to use SaberSim. We're going to hand build. We're going to go through our whole process and everything like that. So if you guys are interested in joining the YouTube members, $3.99, help support the channel. And also we'll have a bunch of content for you guys for UFL. All right, so Ellie, let's get into this, dude. So, look, I know typically we spend a decent amount of time kind of going through and talking about the matchups. That's more beneficial when it's, Jets and Browns on a Thursday night. When you don't have time to really consume a ton of content and you want to know a little bit more about these matchups. Well, this is the Super Bowl. Everybody and their brother's talking about this football-wise. So I want to focus a little bit more DFS-wise and Showdown and kind of talk about some things that we're seeing from SaberSim and looking at, the top ROI lineups, looking at, strategy when it comes to not duping in these giant ass contests, dude. What is the 6 million big contest, $1 million to first is like what, 500K entrants, 400 something thousand entrants. We got a lot of smaller contests too, or smaller entry contests, like the 10 cent 20 max, the 25 cent 20 max, the $1.20 max. Those are all still very big contests. So, just loading up Christian McCaffrey at captain and calling it a day and duping with 500 people, it's not going to be a positive ROI setup for us, at least looking at things now. Ellie, thoughts on your strategy here? The biggest question here is to CMC or not to CMC. That is always the question. And I think it really comes down to playing him at captain or not playing him at captain, because I'm not going to go out of my way, definitely not going to go out of my way to fade him completely. I might just try to stick with him in the flex, fade him at captain for a majority of my builds for GPPs, and then maybe try to prioritize him as my single entry captain. What are your thoughts here, dude? We'll talk about the numbers kind of pushing us behind this as well, but what are your general thoughts on CMC here and thoughts on other builds and how do we get different?
So, look, the CMC discussion really comes down to just contest size. I think what we're going to see here is just right out the gate, the easiest way to kind of have a chance at soloing something on a Sunday is probably going to be eliminating Christian McCaffrey from your captain lineups just right out the gate, right? He's going to be the highest owned captain, and for good reason. But we're trying to win money here, not necessarily predict, who the top scorer of the slate's going to be. It probably will be Christian McCaffrey, right? But there's other ways that we need to prioritize getting to other guys. And that said, again, he's going to be the highest owned guy. So as we kind of look through these lineups, these are going to be just kind of what is it? An aggregation of the data that you generated from SaberSim, right? We're going to be looking at these lineups based on the top 100 return on investment. And the first thing that we're going to notice is just as we kind of look at how these lineups are generated, it's looking to fade those chalky players, right? And the first way to do that is getting 10% CMC at captain as opposed to the field's 25 to 35%.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're looking here, CMC captain out of the top 100 ROI lineups. And this is calculated based off of the first step is the play-by-play sims that that SaberSim is actually giving us, all those lineups, and then on top of that, contest simulating for the big contest. All this is based off of this big contest. And we're trying to figure out how we can get different if we're entering lineups into this big contest. And some of the smaller contests, too, are going to have similar type results. But we're getting to basically like 10% captain in the top 100 ROI, 27% in the flex. It looks like, a majority of our lineups are only going to have one quarterback based off of the ROI here. And look, this isn't the Bible. This is just trying to set us up to kind of figure out what kind of roster construction and what kind of combinations of things we need to do to set ourselves up for the highest ROI type builds. Here's the interesting thing, though. So if you're building, let's just say you're in the mini max. You got 150 lineups in the mini max. This is probably more geared towards you. If you're going to play 500 plus lineups or whatever it is, you're going to end up with more Christian McCaffrey lineups. If we look at this, so I basically, these are positive ROI only lineups based off of contest sims for the big contest. And I tried to crunch as many possible lineups with these captains locked. So I got like over 4,000 lineups with Christian McCaffrey. I filtered out all the negative ROI lineups, and these are kind of the results for each captain. If you look at the number of positive ROI lineups with Christian McCaffrey, he's at 1,100. The next highest is going to be Kelsey at 1,000. Now, what that's telling me here is generally speaking, as the more lineups you build, it feels like the more lineups you're probably going to want to get to Christian McCaffrey. But the top 100 lineups ROI-wise, you might want to consider fading them. Anyways, what jumps out to here? Can you explain this to the people? This isn't some massive thing we need to actually use while we're building, but I just wanted to show kind of a mass amount of lineups produced. I know it's Thursday, but there's going to be some news probably. But as of right now, it seems like kind of getting an idea of what we're looking at here. Talk to us, Goose. What does this mean?
Right. So outside of CMC, I think that the one thing that you can really kind of notice just from the way the stat is presented is, your lower average number of dupes is going to increase your kind of just ROI in general. Right. And I think what we're seeing here is that, your ROI is going to be largely predicated based on your ability to have a very low owned lineup. And sometimes that's one or two different spots. And obviously CMC being a bit of the exception, but the reason being is because he's going to be optimally projected. He's going to be the highest projected person on the slate in the most lineups. So odds are you're going to need him at some point to generate ROI if you're building a shitload of lineups. That said, I think really what this is telling me is if you're running maybe even 5 to 10 lineups, you maybe want to keep it 5 to 10% Christian McCaffrey and really focus on getting some of these other guys in the captain spot, just to help from a leverage perspective. I mean, look at Bryce captain. I know that negative 2.3 dupes is not really a real number, but
actually, it's
what
not
it's
negative.
telling us,
that's my bad. I just formatted it incorrectly. It's just a dash. Yeah, my bad.
That makes a little bit more sense. There's space there, right? Rashee Rice, a captain, is going to give you a little bit more flexibility, and his higher ownership might be, this dupes might be predicated on the fact that you have the ability to spend up a little bit more, right? Look at his median salary being at 48.8. So again, I just think, it really helps reinforce the idea that CMC at captain is probably just not the best idea here.
Yeah, and look, there's a very good chance that CMC is the highest scoring player, but he's 18,000 captain price, right? So even if he does put up 25 fantasy points, if Rashee Rice puts up 21, does that make him the better optimal play at his price because you're able to jam in the rest of these studs that you want to play? These teams, minus a lot of these scrubs that randomly pop up for the Chiefs, these teams are pretty heavily concentrated on a core group of players that they like to target. So getting to those guys and paying down a little bit of captain might be the way to go. If you look at the highest ROI lineup here, as of right now, we got Rashee Rice at captain. This is a 3-3. You fade Mahomes. You got Pacheco and the kicker, Butker. And you got Debo, Kittle, Purdy. Now, this lineup right here is projected for 0 dupes, right? But because so many people use SaberSim, and because this lineup almost no matter what you do, you're probably going to end up with something like this lineup. It's probably going to make this a duped lineup eventually, but it's not going to be as duped as 162 that is projected over here on the left. Another Rashee Rice lineup. You got Rashee, Hardman, Mahomes, Pacheco, McCaffrey, and Kittle. So these are just to get an idea. Like, this is the 2100th ranked lineup because it's negative ROI. And when we're sorting in SaberSim, it's giving us the highest ROI because, these higher dupe lineups just aren't a good idea to play. They're just not. All right, so besides that, let's just get into matchup-wise, all right? So, like I said earlier, we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I do want to talk about kind of setting ourselves up for which players we really want to focus on and what are some of the matchups that we really want to go after when we're building our game scripts. 49ers, our favorites, -2. This is 47.5 point total. Both these defenses are solid. The Chiefs defense has been crushing lately, especially in the playoffs, man. They've looked great. Patrick Mahomes hasn't needed to come out and throw for 300 yards and 5 touchdowns, Pacheco's been getting more involved. Kelsey has looked like the best receiver in the history of the playoffs because he kind of is at this point almost. Can we go back to the well with Kelsey? I think we probably have to. But thoughts on this spread here. It's a 47.5 point total. Both defenses, their weaknesses is probably against the run. So obviously CMC is going to get involved unless he gets hurt or Mitchell gets 3 or 4 random goal line carries. We're going to want to target CMC, obviously. Target him in the flex most likely. And Pacheco feels like he's in a really good spot having, 8K? Thoughts just generally speaking here on some of these matchups that you're thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, so look, I think overall, first of all, I do want to say I am going to put some money on the Kansas City Chiefs money line. I mean, anytime you can get plus money, at this point, we should have just been playing it the whole playoffs, right? I can't believe they were dogs this whole time, and they continue to be. So, that's the first thing that I want to call out. The Niners are a great team, but at this point, we've said it on the past 25 shows for the Chiefs at this point. This was supposed to be a down year. The fact that they're here is kind of impressive. And, giving Pat Mahomes a defense might be even better than giving him wide receivers. But anyways, that said, I think this is a really interesting matchup because a lot of when we're looking at these offenses, San Francisco, their offense, it's kind of built for yak, right? Yards after the catch. And I think what a lot of defenses are doing is kind of just leaning more towards letting Brock Purdy have to hit these throws, right? One of the things you'll see is he has a pretty decent ADOT, right? His depth of target is a little bit higher than what you're going to see when we talk about Pat Mahomes. So this is a really interesting matchup from that perspective because I'm curious to see how Shanahan adjusts to that. And how he's going to be able to capitalize on some of these yak. That the Kansas City defense is going to keep everything in front of them, or at least make Purdy make these throws. Now, on the other side of the ball, the reason why you're seeing Patrick Mahomes with I think this is his career high in yards around the line of scrimmage. Right? He's leading the NFL in attempts around the line of scrimmage, and people are talking shit about that, saying, "Oh, well, he's just checking it down." It's well, that's what he does. He has time in the pocket. He scrambles, makes plays, or they call these other plays, right? And defenses, they're actually trying to keep the play in front of him. They don't want to let anybody beyond him. So it is a really interesting matchup here, man. I'm really excited for this one because I think there's a lot of personnel that can take advantage of both of what these defenses like to do.
Brock Purdy against the blitz, dude. Look, we know Spagnuolo, dude's going to blitz. 37% blitz rate this season. And Brock Purdy, the highest rating against the blitz, 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions this year. And look, guys like Debo really jump out to me. And, guys like Debo really jump out to me in a situation where you got to run screens, quick adjustments at the line, quick hot routes to Debo, putting him in motion, trying to get him open in space. It feels like a Debo situation. Last week we talked a lot about Ayuk, or not last week, I guess 2 weeks ago, Ayuk and Kittle against that Detroit defense and how bad they are with covering wide receivers. This week, I kind of am interested in getting to some more Debo. He's healthy. 49ers defense has been giving up some points, dude. 21-plus points allowed in each game in the playoffs. And then you go to the other side, and, the Chiefs this year, the most points they've given up has been 27 points, and that was to the Packers. And these run defenses are middle of the pack. I think, both teams can attack with the run. Pacheco, to me, is a really interesting guy to get a captain in the flex. And I want to talk about some of these matchups individually here, because when I'm building, for YouTube members, you'll see kind of how we're building for that Saturday show for you guys. But when I'm building, I want to think of very specific game scripts. Let's say I have 200 lineups in this. I want to take, 25 lineups where I'm saying Ayuk is going to get shut down by Snead. What happens? I'm going to adjust projections. I'm going to do a bunch of stuff, and I'm going to try to make those lineups, out of 25 lineups, try to get that game script in. I think this is where we focus here, man, is a lot on these matchups and make game scripts around these matchups. Rice versus Ward. That's an interesting matchup. Who has the advantage there? I don't know. I honestly don't. I would say that Snead, Snead's one of he's not an all-pro for some reason. He's 28th ranked according to PFF. You'd have to disagree with that. You're talking about one of the top shutdown corners in the league. And him going up against Ayuk, these guys are both dogs, dude. Like, these guys are going to be coming out there and playing it up. So that's a matchup to really look at. Kelsey versus Fred Warner and these linebackers, that's an interesting lineup. McKivitz versus Jones. You're looking at one of the worst rated dudes against the pass blocking grade wise. He's definitely the weak link on this line. And you got Bosa versus Taylor. But anyways, here, man, what out of these matchups, what really jumps out to you, and where are you leaning with some of these matchups? I don't know if Snead will completely follow Ayuk. It seems like he might. Maybe it's a Snead and Debo. I don't know, but what jumps out to you here?
So, like, man, I mean, generally when it comes to weapons, I kind of lean towards the offense. But in this particular case, the Kansas City defense has been pretty consistent. So if Snead's really going to shadow Ayuk, that's something that I think is worth mentioning. You maybe give Debo a little bit of a boost in that case. But, I mean, really, the offensive line battles are going to be what really sticks out, right? Both sides. You got Bosa and, Chris Jones both going at their guys. If the Chiefs are able to get pressure on Purdy without blitzing, that does throw a bit of a wrinkle into it. Like, I think that kind of really impacts the game plan overall, but I would expect Shanahan to be able to, he's going to have some zone stretches. His zone run game is really going to optimize his offensive line. So I don't know, man. I think that's the one that we got to keep an eye on the most, probably, is those tackles.
So Ellie, you sent this to me earlier in the week, or maybe it was like last week, but it was a tweet here basically talking about how, a lot of times trying to get Mecole Hardman and Kadarius Toney, these kind of guys, getting them involved more against the 49ers could be beneficial. And, even a tweet here about the Chiefs are using more multi-tight end sets instead of playing unreliable wide receivers. We're getting more snaps for Noah Gray. We're getting more snaps for backup CEH, as opposed to getting Richie James in. Just talking about this, like, we're going to have to go through, when we get to the breakdown, we're going to have to, unfortunately, talk about all these scrub wide receivers for the Chiefs, and we're probably going to have to be forced to play some of these guys, especially if we're going to be unique. So what jumps out to you here, man? Like, Noah Gray, to me, feels like kind of interesting. Last week, somebody was like, yeah, I want to play Noah Gray as opposed to this tight end. And I was like, Noah Gray, man, he ain't going to do shit. He's not going to be on the field. We're seeing he's getting more opportunities.
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing is like Mecole Hardman. I think you can be a little bit less, a little bit skeptical that he's going to end up with 0 snaps again. I think that was more just reaction. He had 2 fumbles the week prior or some shit. So how Andy Reid when it comes to that. So I do think McColl's going to get involved. And yeah, man, I don't know. I thought the San Francisco 49ers defense was just, feeling rusty from the week off, but they did not look great last week either. So, I do think that you can take advantage of some stuff here. And again, if these guys are going to be on the field, like, you got to play them. Noah Gray, Blake Bell, these guys are all going to be under 5% owned. Mecole Hardman, he actually might be closer to 10, 15% owned just because people know what his fucking name is, right? So, but these tight ends, like, they may actually not be owned. Say even, dude, I think Say might be low owned too.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can get into that.
We probably will. Okay, so obviously we talked about the blitz here. You guys can pause and kind of look at this and read some of this, but it seems like Purdy excels. He does well against the blitz. He gets the ball out of his hands quick and he makes good decisions. But hey, it's Purdy. We've seen him have some of these down games every once in a while where he'll throw some picks, specifically against Baltimore. All right, let's get into our injuries here. Let me hit it.
Yeah, just pain. It was pain everywhere.
All right, so the biggest news here to talk about is more so on the Kansas City side. Kadarius Toney is not listed on the injury report. So does that mean he's going to be active? Are they going to have an excuse to make him inactive this week? Or are they just going to say, you suck and we hate you and we never want you to be on this team again and you're inactive? I don't know. If he's active, I'm going to have to play a little bit of him, 5% or something. McKinnon is the big news to me here. And this is a possible death trap for me because if McKinnon is active and comes off the IR, we have sort of conflicting reports here. We're going to have to kind of wait to see what happens here. But he's $200, dude. And the fact that, when they get down to the goal line, they're either handing it off Pacheco or they're doing some of these random, Mahomes type, improvised type plays. And guess who gets a lot of those in the past? Jerick McKinnon is the kind of guy that they've missed this year when it comes to that. That's why they're playing fucking Mecole Hardman and Toney in these situations and handing the ball off. So to me, I know he's a running back. I know CEH is there. Thoughts on Jerick McKinnon here, because one report on February 5th says he has a very real chance, in quotes, to play in the Super Bowl. And then from the horse's mouth, Andy Reid said it is a slim chance that Jerick McKinnon would play. I'm going to have to rely on Andy Reid here. If he says it's a slim chance, even though he was limited in practice today, on Wednesday, to me, if McKinnon is active, I'm probably going to lose a shitload of money. What are your thoughts?
So the first thing I want to say is Andy Reid has never been a great, reliable person when it comes to the running back position anyway. So whatever, right? That's the first thing I want to say. Second thing is this isn't the same discussion as him versus Toney, right? Toney's $1,400, McKinnon's $200. This is a slate. Unfortunately, this ended up being a slate where that might be one of the three lineups I play with Christian McCaffrey at captain is I risk a $200 Jerick McKinnon.
Yes.
That's going to be 1.5% owned because everyone's scared to play him.
Yes.
Right. So there's reason to be playing Jerick McKinnon. But there's less risk associated with it just because he's $200, man. It's a slate where it's viable. Unfortunately.
Yeah, so we got guys like Sky Moore coming back potentially. I have no clue how this is all going to go. An hour and a half before inactives, or maybe since it's a Super Bowl, we'll get some more reporting on this and some insider information as to who's going to be active maybe a few hours before the game. But, Sky Moore is potentially coming back. Toney could potentially be active. Jerick McKinnon could potentially be active. If none of these guys are active, Richie James maybe is inactive. So we're going to have to wait to see kind of what happens here. But Joe Thuney, the guard, he missed last week. It worked out fine for him. But he's one of their best offensive linemen. If he's out again, it's not going to help them. That's for damn sure. On the other side, really nothing to talk about here until we see some actual maybe on Saturday or Friday night when we get actual designations here, maybe we'll be able to kind of see what's going on with the 49ers side. But anything else jump out to you here? Chris Jones is a full practice. He's a quad injury. Probably don't have to worry about that. But any other concerns?
Nothing crazy. And I just, while we're transitioning though, the one thing I will say is I wouldn't read too much into it. Hop in the Discord. Sunday is going to be the day that we're going to want to talk about this. Again, neither of these teams had any competitive advantage to really disclose things. If anything, Andy Reid could have just activated everybody or gone through this just to muck up the waters, right? So just keep in mind, we'll watch warm-ups. They're going to be broadcasting that shit all day. And they're probably broadcasting practice all this week. So if you have any news, any insider information, hop in the Discord.
And obviously, Menahu tore his ACL, so they're without another one of their best pass rushers. Let's get into this, dude. Let's do this breakdown here. Here we go. Break it down! So let's start. Let me create a new tab here. Let me zoom in. So Christian McCaffrey $18,000 for a captain choice. And then you drop down to Mahomes at 15.9 and Kelsey at 15.3. So you can kind of see, like, unless we get some news where we get some value that we really, really like, I'm probably going to avoid doing that, just like we said in the opener. Let's start with quarterback here. So, we're kind of back to the same old question here. 2 quarterbacks or not? It feels like to me it's going to be impossible to play 2 quarterbacks unless you completely fade Christian McCaffrey, which I'm not doing in the flex. It feels like you're going to pick, Mahomes or Purdy, and you're going to stack a couple pass catchers with them in the flex. What are we doing here, man? Mahomes is 10.6. Brock Purdy's 10. They're priced okay, but I just don't see how we're going to get to both quarterbacks, unfortunately. And in a lot of situations, Patrick Mahomes has come out. He's led the team to a win, and he's had, 14, 15 fantasy points, and he doesn't even make the optimal because Pacheco's going off. We get a lot of receptions out of Kelsey. Maybe you don't need Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to say fade Patrick Mahomes. He's probably going to be 50% owned, but maybe we stick with 1 quarterback in these builds. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the way that you got to go. Normally, like on certain slates, you want to prioritize both quarterbacks, right? That's what you're trying to do. On this slate, I don't know if you necessarily have to because either side, I guess Niners more so. Like you can spread out the offense enough that, or you can have one guy go off where you don't need to have the quarterback or you don't need to have a full stack of the offense, right? It could be a Kittle day, it could be a CMC day, whatever it is. But Patrick Mahomes is largely going to be the guy who's driving the team's success. And from what we've seen, Kelsey can obviously take over now too. But it's just like, if you're going to make a decision between these two, I think you got to lean more towards Mahomes. And the way that I'll be building, because I'm probably not going to have any CMC captain, right? Then I'm not necessarily looking to fade Patrick Mahomes. Does that make sense? I'm already fading the chalkiest dude on the slate. I'm not gonna double down on fading, Hall of Famers at that point. I'll keep playing Patrick Mahomes. Brock Purdy is probably the odd man out just because of how their offense works. But at the same time, if you can comfortably play both guys, then do it. Just understand that because of the pricing limitations, those lineups are going to be confined to a certain type of build. So you're going to need to get different off of those dual quarterback builds.
Yeah. And for anybody who's tuning in, that's, obviously, maybe new to Showdown, if you're playing any of these dudes at captain, which I actually don't mind in this particular slate, you just pair 2 of his pass catchers at minimum with him, in the flex. And, if you got Brock Purdy in the flex, you're probably going to want to have at least Debo or Kittle or Ayuk along with him. All right, let's get to running backs here. We'll start with San Francisco. CMC 12K. Kyle Juszczyk, $800, dude. This guy, he's on the field a lot. He's blocking, he's getting involved, but when shit hits the fan and they got to improvise, he's a dude who can make some plays. We saw him with that toe tap reception on the sideline the other day. In 2019, when these teams played in the Super Bowl, he was about a half yard or inches away from scoring 2 touchdowns in that game. So Kyle J at $800, dude, I'm sorry, but if there's no McKinnon, I'm going to have way too much Kyle Juszczyk. And yes, I get it, it's risky. But especially in single entry where you don't always have to hit the nuts, if I can get CMC a captain in my single entries, Kyle J in the flex, that's going to allow me to get to some studs that I really want. And if he gets a 15-yard reception and maybe he gets a goal line opportunity, that could make all the difference. Eli Mitchell, $2,800. Look, CMC is going to be on the field 98% of the time. The only reason he came out last week was because he landed on his neck and he got hurt and he was getting tuned up. And they put Elijah Mitchell in, and he just happened to get the play call and score a touchdown. I'm not excited to play Elijah Mitchell. I wish he didn't score last week because he'd probably be under $1,000 or around $1,000. I'm probably not touching Elijah Mitchell here. So thoughts on these guys, and are you going to lose money just like I am playing Kyle Juszczyk?
Do I have to talk about McCaffrey? Not playing him at captain. There you go. Play him as much as you want, though.
Yeah.
If you like him at captain, do it. All right, Kyle Juszczyk. So here's the thing: is if you want a conspiracy theory, if you think that there's one out there, then this is what we're going to see. Kyle Juszczyk is going to score a touchdown. Under his shirt is going to be a shirt saying, "My wife sells licensed NFL apparel, and she makes it herself," or some shit along those lines, and then they're going to drive up revenue on her stuff. So I like Kyle. I think he probably scores a touchdown just because of that nonsense. But I think he's a fine play at $800. Eli Mitchell, 2,800. I'll cross him off entirely.
Look, at minimum, Kyle J is on the field a lot. And like I said, he's not going to get a lot of opportunities, but he's not one of these random third string tight ends that is not athletic and will only be on the field 20% of the time. He's going to be on the field a lot. So he's $800.
Hopefully Shanahan, just, man, don't let, better. You use your fullback, run the ball, and keep the ball out of an all-time great quarterback's hands. He should have flashbacks to the Atlanta Super Bowl every single time he questions whether or not he runs.
Absolutely. All right, so going to KC's side here, Isaiah Pacheco's 8K, dude. I mean, this is a great price for a guy with a pretty good matchup. I'm not saying the Chiefs' defense is against the run is one of the worst in the league, but it is a weakness, and we've seen them get exposed. We saw Detroit absolutely annihilate them on the ground. You got the Tasmanian Devil, Isaiah Pacheco. You're going to want to utilize him. You're going to want to run him on first down. Get 4 or 5 yards a pop. Set yourself up in front of the sticks on second down. And in addition to that, he's going to get all the goal line carries. Isaiah Pacheco, 8K, feels like potentially one of these cash or single entry type captains, and getting him in the flex a ton is a priority for me. CEH, 1,200, he's interesting. Just looking at all the crunches, I'm getting to quite a bit of CEH in the flex, and I even got a couple captain CEH. I'm not doing that. I'm not going out of my way to do that. But, he's interesting because of his price. And you kind of never know what's going to happen with this team, and putting CEH in, and maybe he's getting a couple of pass catching opportunities out of the backfield. Obviously, we got Jerick McKinnon to talk about here. Unfortunately, he's $200. If he's active, I will be playing him. I kind of hope he's inactive, so I don't have to make that decision. But if he's active, I don't even know if he sees the field. That's the worry here. So thoughts on these guys? You got to love Isaiah Pacheco, right?
Yeah, Pacheco at 8K, he's an awesome option, right? Especially for an offense that has so many question marks. I'm fine with going Pat Mahomes, Pacheco, Pat Mahomes, Kelsey, or in lineups that I fade Mahomes, going Kelsey, Pacheco, right? And then I think you can soak up a lot of the Chiefs offense that way. Outside of that, man, I do moderately like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I want to say that softly just because who fucking knows what Andy Reid's going to do with him, right? So that said, we saw last year, 7 carries, 0 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Right? That might have been the last game of the season or shit like that. We know what happens with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, man, at $1,200. If Jerick McKinnon is inactive, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I'm playing Kyle J. I'm going to play a little bit of him too, right? Those are the guys that probably be the mainstay value pieces at this point.
All right, let's go to wide receivers here. Let's start with the Chiefs. So Rashee Rice, 7,600. That's a ridiculously low price for him. Look, we know that most likely either Kelsey or Rashee Rice is going to go off. Which one? Which one are they going to focus on? Rice is a guy that, you throw him the ball 4 yards down the field, he can get you 60. He's a big yak dude, just like Debo. And he's clearly the number one wide receiver on the team. He's going to be involved. I feel like you got to get a min one of Rashi or Kelsey. I think you can play them together. We've seen Rashee Rice, not have the best of games the last few weeks, but still stepped up when they needed him, and they got the wins. He's $7,600. MVS, 3K. Oh, boy. He stepped up, dude. Say what you want about him. He had pretty much the game-winning catch last week or 2 weeks ago in the AFC Championship game. And he's had some big catches in this playoff run. But he's a boomer bust guy. He's 3K. I think you could probably get to some captain of MBS, in a couple of lineups, if he just happens to catch one of these 50-yard bombs. You're going to need that out of him, though, most likely. He's 3K, So you can't really rely on him to get you 7, 8 targets and 80 yards. You probably more realistically, he's going to get 3 or 4 targets. One of those is going to be a 50-yard bomb. And if he catches it, well, then you're good to go. If not, he's not going to make the optimal at all. He's 3K. Justin Watson, he's a guy that's on the field a lot. He's getting this, third most targets. But, dude, it's Justin Watson, man. You're going to need to rely on a big play out of him. Yeah, there's the occasion where they're in the red zone and he'll get open and Patrick Mahomes will run around and toss it to him in the back of the end zone. But he's $2,400. He's kind of scary. Mecole Hardman at $1,600. Is that a trend? Are we going to see 1 or 2 snaps out of him? Are they saying screw him with guys like Sky Moore and Tony potentially being active? Does he take the back seat? I don't know. I'm not really going out of my way to play Mecole Hardman, but at $1,600, if he's really projected around that, might be worth it. Richie James is $400. A revenge game narrative for Richie James here. He's like my favorite dude as far as all these scrub wide receivers, but he just doesn't get involved as much. And like we said in the open, like it seems like they're getting to more, 2 tight end sets, 2 running back sets, and not getting to as many, multiple wide receivers. And these guys kind of suffer for it. So what else are you thinking here, dude? Like Sky Moore's 2K. Like I'm not going to play Sky Moore probably. Kadarius Toney is $1,400. We saw both of them score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, of course. I think these guys are in the doghouse and they're kind of busts, and I don't think that there's any reason for them to go out of their way to play them. But who you focused on here besides Rashee Rice, and where does Rashee Rice actually rank for you as far as the studs? Because he's $7,600, dude. I think playing him at captain quite a bit above the field is probably a pretty good strategy.
Yeah, I mean he's priced so nicely. Him and Pacheco are just priced well enough. I think I don't know. Maybe it's just because we've seen Rice's production go down a little bit in the playoffs since the reemergence of that Kelsey connection. But based on what we've seen, I have no reason to doubt that he can still get there. So I'm with you on that. I think that he's an excellent captain option. I think he's going to fit fine in a flex place. Looking at MVS, Justin Watson, those guys they kind of just feel like they're priced in a weird spot for me. These are guys that are going to draw a lot of their ownership because you have exactly 2,500 left or 3,200 and you need to jam in. You're as close to max salary as possible, right? So this is kind of like where you start running into those decisions when you're hand building, right? How much am I going to leave on the table? And so I think you have similar upside going down from MVS to Mecole Hardman, right? So I don't know if they're that distinctive plays, but that said, I think you can rotate all these pieces in here, MVS, Watson, and Mecole Hardman specifically, just because again you got Pat Mahomes throwing you the football. This is the big game. This is it. If you're going to do something, now's the time. And then just a quick comment on Richie James, right? Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know that people are going to play him, but I also don't think he should go overlooked. $400, he will be on. He is their punt returner, right? 1 punt return touchdown. I'm not saying that shit's going to happen, but it's the Super Bowl, right? What was it, Devin Hester? That's the only touchdown the Bears had in theirs, or some shit like that.
Opening kickoff, yeah.
Yeah, I know that was 20 years ago now, but my point is that special teams can sometimes be the difference in these games. So Richie James, $400, he's going to see the field for punt returns. Go ahead and get a little bit of exposure, especially in a 150 max, maybe in a 20.
I think we're going to be forced to play these guys a little bit. You look at their ownership; they're all coming in right around the similar ownership, around 9 to 12% owned or so. And I think getting to that amount of them in your portfolio is probably the way to go, because one of these guys is probably going to make a play. I don't know if that play is going to result in the touchdown, but one of these guys who is under 3K is probably going to get a decent play, considering that Patrick Mahomes only has really 2 guys to throw the ball to. They're going to need these guys. Let's go to the other side here. All right, so we've got some incredible players here to talk about. Deebo Samuel, 9,200. We all know what he's capable of. It seems like he's healthy at this point. Brandon Ayuk, 8,800. Who guards these guys? It's not a great matchup either way, whether it's Snead or McDuffie, it doesn't matter. To me, it feels like in this particular game, Deebo is just popping for me a little bit more. And Ayuk, I always love Ayuk. He's one of my favorite dudes. He's 8,800. And at the end of the day, we know what his prowess is down the field. That awesome catch he had was pretty damn good, and then he ended up with a short little touchdown there. Juwan Jennings is 4K, Ray McLeod 200. I think Juwan Jennings is one of these guys that I'd probably rather get to over these scrub KC guys, but he's 4K, so it's probably not going to happen. That's why his ownership's probably hovering around 10%. But there's no damn way in hell that this 16% ownership projection for Debo in the flex and Brandon Ayuk at 15% ownership projection is accurate. If we get closer to lock and I'm seeing multiple sources, multiple different companies saying that they're going to be under 20% owned, I will literally play these guys in almost every lineup because that's way too low for these guys.
Yeah, I don't disagree, man. And it's kind of interesting to me considering, I don't know, San Francisco's favored. That means what? Everybody's playing Christian McCaffrey and either
Kelsey and
wasn't
Checo.
Purdy. They had 35%. So what? Kittle? Like CMC and Kittle? Anyways, or maybe it's CMC and then they're rotating another pair in, right? Debo, Brandon, if they can afford for it. But yeah, man. Debo specifically, he's just because he's not dependent on anybody else necessarily getting him the ball to be successful. He can run the ball and be successful. He can catch the ball and be successful. You know what I mean? So he's kind of a hybrid. He's that middle ground between true wide receiver one Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey. 9,200, 8,800 for both these guys. Yeah, if they're really projected to come under 20%, I think you have to be around 20% or higher if you can comfortably get there. Yeah. I don't know that I'm going to have any Juwan Jennings. 4K is a little pricey for me. And then Ray McLeod, I don't fucking know. Probably not. That's not really. He doesn't get involved. We know who's getting the ball in San Francisco.
The only way Ray gets involved if Juwan Jennings gets injured or if Ray takes a punt return back. That's pretty much it. It's kind of a similar move to Richie James, except for the waters aren't as muddy here on the wide receiver side for the San Francisco. We know where the ball's going. Juwan Jennings every once in a while can make a big play, but at 4K, I don't know that I'm going to be able to fit him in. I'd rather just pay down and just punt and get to all the studs along with him. To me, it feels like a min one of Debo or Ayuk. You could argue Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle min one. But to me, I feel like one of these wide receivers has a pretty good opportunity to get involved. And I think that, to me, that's Debo right now. All right, let's go to tight end. Let's talk about Kittle, 6,400. I think he's got a toe injury. He should be fine, but, they have him listed as questionable. We don't really have official designations yet. But he's $6,400, dude. Now, look, the problem with Kittle is I lost my ass in that Detroit game playing a shitload of Kittle. I had a lot of Ayuk. I had more Kittle because Kittle was priced really good. I had him at captain. He didn't do dog shit. It all depends. I mean, are they going to use Kittle? Flip a coin. I don't know. I think the stat is 40% of his touchdowns have come with Purdy in the last year and a half in his career. 40% of his career touchdowns. So to me, he's a guy that's a 2 touchdown, 3 touchdown upside guy, or potentially get you 4 fantasy points. And that's what's scary. But what does that tell me? He's a great captain option. Throw him at captain. Obviously, I'm going to have some of him in the flex. But Kittle is a guy that can score 2 touchdowns. And same with Kelsey. The problem is, Kelsey is a focal point of the entire offense. Kittle isn't, simply because there's so many mouths to feed. When you have, he's the lowest targeted dude when you have all of these studs healthy for San Francisco. So it is a little bit of a risk. He's coming in around 25% owned. The only reason why he's probably so low owned is probably last week people are a little scared, as well as he's $6,400. It's kind of hard to fit that guy in unless as a 5th spot. Thoughts on Kittle here, dude? I think I'm going to go back to the well. I'm not going to have as much, obviously. I'm going to be a lot more spread out on this slate than I was for the championship weekend or slates past. But he's $6,400, dude. Throw him at captain, man. You can get a shitload of dudes with him in the flex.
Yeah, I'll have a decent amount of captain, probably 10 to 15%, and I think you probably got to be closer to 35%. I don't know, man. Not even total ownership. I'd say 25 to 35% in the flex. The problem with these ownership projections too, I guess, does this count? I mean, this is all inclusive. So if he's projected for 7 or 8% captain, then we're even projecting him for what, 15% in the flex. 6,400, man. I don't know how you come off that. He's one of the more valuable plays on the slate.
It's only this is only the flex. So if we go over to captain, we see he's projecting around 4%. So, coming in around 30, probably 30% total. I think that number, those are rookie numbers. I think those are going to get pumped up. If I had to say, I'd say he'd probably come in closer to 40% total. Still feels a little low, and 4% owned at the captain. Yeah. That's really how we're rolling here. I'm going to get 10%, and now I'm double the field. And I'm probably playing 300 lineups, 250. So 10%, that's still a shitload of lineups with Kittle at captain. All right, let's go to the other side. I mean, these tight ends, dude, like what a good slate for tight ends here. So Travis Kelce is 10.2K, $4,000 more expensive than Kittle. I get it. I get it. Like I said, he's a focal point of this offense. It's either going to Rice or it's either going to Kelce, and most likely going to Kelce. He's a playoff dog. We've seen his records that he's breaking. He's probably going to break another one in this one. Can he get 10 or 11 targets again? Probably. Can they shut him down? Can the linebackers on this 49ers team shut him down? They're pretty good against tight ends, but this is not a normal tight end. He's 10.2K. He's expensive. We're going to have to make tough decisions. But getting him at captain feels like the way to go because he is one of these guys that can absolutely break the slate with 2 touchdowns and 10 receptions. Now, the other guy in that category, obviously, is CMC, but the price difference is there's such a big gap that getting to Kelce at captain, to me, feels like a really good spot. And getting him in the flex as well, I'm not going to go out of my way to not play him in the flex. I'll probably be 50% in the flex, probably 20% in the captain. I'm going to have a lot of Kelce. It's just how it's going to go. Thoughts here, like any reason that, the narrative is that he was dust coming into the playoffs, and then he stepped up and shown why he's one of the best tight ends ever. What's your side of the narrative here, man? Like, are you embracing this, or are you going to try to be under the field?
I'm not going to be under the field. I'm going to be on the same side of the narrative that I've been on all season, even before. You can go back to our best ball shows. I think people have always been low on Kelce, and he may not have had the greatest season that he's had. But I don't know if that's necessarily because he's dust. It was they were pretty much had the division locked up by like week 10 or 11. You know what I mean? Like it was never really competitive in the AFC West. So these guys had the opportunity to try out different things and see what they had in their shitty wide receiver core. Right? They had the ability to do that, and they just come right into the playoffs. Him and Patrick Mahomes have played over a full season of playoff football together. They have 17 games, right? So they have a full season now, I guess. 17 playoff football games together. That's crazy, right? So, like, call him dust, call it whatever you want. Gronk had like 17 back surgeries and wouldn't play an entire regular season, would come back and only do well with Tom Brady in the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's something similar here, right? We're talking about one of the greatest tight ends to ever play the game. This isn't fucking Zach Ertz. No offense, man. I like you. But like, it's Travis Kelce. So that said, man, play him at captain. He's one of the best plays in the slate. Play him at flex if you can get him. Obviously, you're sacrificing just because of his price. That said, man, Noah Gray, Blake Bell, both guys I'm going to have involved. You talked about it a little bit earlier, right? You might have more tight ends on the field. Helps Pacheco, right? Gives him a little bit more running, run blocking out there, and gives a little bit more reliable hands for Patrick Mahomes. So I think both those guys are in play.
We saw that touchdown catch against Kyle Hamilton. What was that on the first drive? Like, say what you want about the matchups. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't care who's guarding him. He's either going to have one of these on games, or he's going to put up 4 or 5 fantasy points. I'm still going to make sure I jam him in, because I'm not going to be the guy who says, screw Travis Kelce in the Super Bowl. I'm not playing him, and then he puts up 30 fantasy points. I'm not doing it. All right, let's go to kickers and defense. So, we got to talk about this. These are good defenses, good pass rushes. Could we see some mistakes happen in this game, especially Purdy? We've seen him make some mistakes. That Baltimore game is kind of what everybody points at. Well, some of those weren't his fault. Some of those were just really unlucky. You know, I get it. But I think there's a situation where, am I trusting Steve Wilkes or Spagnuolo? Probably Spagnuolo. You know, you see my Cardinals hat here. I'm not really, you know, I don't trust Wilkes as much. But, you know, this 49ers defense is pretty good. But the KC defense has really driven them this entire season, if you really look at it. Harrison Butker's 5K, Jake Moody's 5,200, Chiefs defense 34, 49ers 44. I think Chiefs defense is interesting to get involved in this game. I'm not going to have a ton. I mean, they're coming in projected around 20% ownership. I don't think I'm going to get to that, but I will have some game scripts where this game hits the under and maybe the Chiefs defense steps up and gets a turnover, scoop and score or something. Jake Moody to me is a risk. He's 5,200. He's a rookie. We've seen him miss field goals. You know, he's probably going to miss a field goal in this game. Harrison Butker is a lot more reliable. This is the Super Bowl. We have two coaches who aren't afraid to go for it, who aren't afraid to use analytics to kind of go for it on fourth down. But I think you got to take the points where you can here. And, you know, two Harrison Butker 50-yard field goals at 5K might be enough with, you know, maybe 2 extra points. That's pretty good at 5K. So thoughts, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, both kickers are in play. I don't know if you need to have both in the same lineup, so probably just make that a rule if you're using an optimizer. And then, again, I think both defenses are technically in play. I think I lean a little bit more towards the Chiefs. I'm not fully sold on the Niners, right? To your point, 21+ in every playoff game so far. They just haven't looked all that great. And just one more thing to say about their defense. 4,400 is a little bit of a price to pay. That Ravens defense was technically a historically good defense this season. So it didn't matter. Patrick Mahomes fucked him up. So
yep.
It just kind of concerns me if the Niners aren't on a great trend. If it's not a good spot for them, man. I would rather just save the 10 to 15% projected ownership and play the 4,400 somewhere else.
All right, let's get to our captain option here. Ellie and I have agreed on both our captain and fades. I think that's for the first time this season. And Ellie texted me, he's like, should we like change it up? Like, should I pick somebody else? I'm like, no, like, why pick somebody that we don't really think just to be different? Here we go. What do you guys think? Let's do it. Here's our Crown Their Ass segment.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
We're both going Kelsey. I mean, the numbers, you know, in SaberSim are pointing towards Kelsey at captain as a really good option. We know his upside. You know, is there a potential letdown game, you know, 49ers script where, you know, the 49ers dominate and Kelsey doesn't get involved and maybe Rashee Rice gets those points, maybe Pacheco gets the touchdowns in that red area? Yeah, of course. I'm not having 80% Kelsey. But let's say Kelsey's 15% owned at captain. Let me actually, I want to look that up actually. You know, if he's 15% owned at captain, you know, I'll have, and he looks like he's coming in at like 8%. So I'll probably have 20% Kelsey captain. I'm still more than double the field. That's a lot. He probably will be one of my higher owned captains in GPPs. Talk to me, Ellie. What else is there to talk about here? Like, who are some of your other guys that you're interested in, though? Because, like, yes, our favorite captain is Kelsey, but it doesn't mean I'm getting to 90% Kelsey.
Yeah, so I mean, the good thing is the tight end segment should still be pretty fresh in everybody's head. I just fucking ran my mouth about him for a second there, but I like Kelsey at captain. Other guys, right? You really got to consider George Kittle. He's just the immediate guy that comes right off the head. 6,400 is just too cheap. He's going to give you a lot of price flexibility. And then I do think you need to consider Pacheco and Rashee Rice. And then, you know, I don't want to make it too complicated, but I think you can introduce, you know, a little bit of Debo in the captain as well. Of course, you want to get Ayuk, CMC, and all these other guys, but that's probably the order that I'm going into. It's going to be Kelsey, Kittle, and then I think Pacheco, probably my top three.
Yeah, and Debo for me is up there for sure. For single entries, I think Kelsey is in the mix, but because I'm going so heavy in GPPs, maybe I think what I'm going to do for a single entry specifically is get to, you know, if I have 7 single entries or something, maybe 4 or 5 are CMC captains for single entry specifically. Mix in a couple Pachecos, mix in maybe one Kelsey, something like that. But there's a lot of good captain options here, man. And there's some mid-range guys that we probably wouldn't mind mixing in, especially if you're building a shitload of lineups. Let's get to our fade here.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
Yep, CMC captain, dude. Will CMC probably be one of the higher scoring players on the slate? Yeah, I think he will. But if we're playing 400,000 entry contests, and he's going to be, he's projected to be 40% owned at captain. I don't know if that's going to happen. Maybe in the 30 range. But still, dude, how many different combinations of CMC can you get at a 400,000 lineups and 40% ownership? The main reason why is because guess what? We got to try to not dupe in these contests, dude. Especially if you're entering a shitload of lineups into the big contest and you have a lot of CMC captain, you're going to be playing like Richie James and MVS. Like you're going to have to get weirdly different, and I don't really want to do that. I'd rather go with Kelsey. I'd rather go with Rashee Rice, Pacheco, a lot of these other guys who have good ceilings and are way damn cheaper. When CMC goes off for 40 fantasy points and everybody's going to be commenting like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, Ellie, talk to us a little bit. Like, we got to mix in a little strategy here, man. There's no way that we can. Me personally, I'm not comfortable playing a ton of 40% CMC captain. I'm just not going to do it. I'll probably be 5% and then focus on him in my single entries at captain.
Yeah, man, like I guess like here's the thing, right? If you think that your $115, $20 bullet with the CMC captain lineup is the nuts and you put it in and chop it up 250 ways, yeah, you might profit. If you're doing a bunch of lineups, you're not going to really end up profiting at a certain point. Like there's a law of diminishing returns. I'm not going to make you a fucking graph. I'm sure you guys can do that on your own, but like figure out how many lineups you can play with CMC at captain where you're comfortable enough to actually be able to profit. And that's just where I'm at, man. Like he's going to be the highest owned guy. He's the most expensive dude. So you only have a handful of lineups that you're going to be comfortable building with him. And those are going to be chalky as hell. So like, I'm not trying to come up with like a bold take or anything like this, but there's going to be 700,000 people playing in a contest. 200,000 of those lineups are going to have CMC at captain, right? Like that's crazy.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot. And there's probably other ways to get different. Like if you want to play CMC at captain, I'm not telling you not to do it. I think it's a good idea. But how are you going to get different? Like what is your roster construction going to be? And are you comfortable playing a 1% dude who might not see the field? That's just what you have to ask yourself. All right, let's get into lineup builds. So like I said in the opening, we're going to do, for the YouTube members, we're going to do a full show, probably an hour, on Saturday morning. We'll release that a little bit later in the day of building lineups. We're going to hand build a bunch of lineups. We're going to go through our full SaberSim process. By the way, we're not sponsored by SaberSim, but they do have a free 5-day trial. So now would be the time to sign up for that. If you want to try it out, you got NBA also, we got NHL, we got all the golf. We got a lot of stuff that you could also play on these other days. It'd be worth trying out because it's my favorite tool. It's one of my favorite tools I've ever used. Like I said, we're not sponsored. I'm just trying to tell you guys what I like to do, and I love using SaberSim. So we have that show that you guys can watch if you guys want to join YouTube channel, YouTube members, sorry. So we're not going to build a ton of lineups here. We're already hitting about an hour, but let's build a couple, right? So let's build a CMC captain and see kind of what you got to do. Let's see what kind of suck we have to endure here in order to be comfortable with him at captain. So CMC captain, what do you want to do? You want to do like a 2-4? Do you want to do a 3-3 here? Let's assume we're building this for a single entry. And all these single entries are big contests as well. Like the $100 single entry has 2,700 entries, as opposed to usually being under 1,000. So these are still big contests for single entries. So what do we got to do here, man? What are your thoughts? Get one quarterback, try to get Kelsey in there, try to get, what do you want to do? You want to focus on the Chiefs in this one? Where are you going?
Let's start with Pat Mahomes. I think we're going to have fade Purdy. It's either Purdy or Kelsey.
I'd rather play Kelsey.
I'm leaning Kelsey.
Yeah. So let's put in Kelsey. So CMC, Mahomes, Kelsey. How many hundreds of thousands of lineups do you think are starting with this? There's going to be a lot. Like this is where you start. From here, we got to get weird. We got 3,700 apiece left. So, if you want to build CMC tournament lineups, you probably can't do this, or you probably got to go with Mahomes. You got to fade Kelsey. You probably go Mahomes and Rice, and you go down to freaking Noah Gray. This is what you're gonna have to do. But for this case, let's just start with these three guys and try to make it work. We got 3 spots left. We're gonna have to go low. Like who's a cheap dude that you're interested in getting? I mean, do you want to just throw in Kittle right away since he's 6,400? That's a pretty good price. See if we can even do it. So McCaffrey, Kittle, we're probably going to end up. Do you want to go Kyle J here?
I mean, yeah,
we have to.
It's either him or Seh. I mean, Seh is going to be 15% owned. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, that's fine. But if you go to Seh, you can't get Jennings. But I don't know that I want Jennings in cash anyway.
No, Chiefs defense, MVS. So that's what you're kind of dealing with here. McCaffrey, Mahomes, Kelsey, Kittle, Juszczyk, MVS. Juszczyk and MVS can both get a 0. And that's what worries me about these lineups.
Let's just try this real quick. Just pull out Kittle and then go down to, kicker. Put in Butker.
Butker?
Yeah.
All right. So double kicker,
That's better than the last lineup.
Yeah. No, for sure. Absolutely. And for a single entry, this isn't terrible. Let's just do no quarterbacks.
I probably wouldn't run it, but it's... Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. Let's do no quarterbacks in this one. Notice how we didn't get to any Debo. We didn't get to any Ayuk. We got no Purdy. So let's do McCaffrey, Kelsey. And then you want to go Debo or do you want to go to Kittle? I'd rather go Debo if we can. It's not terrible, 4,200. At this point, we're in the basement looking for guys. I'm just gonna by default put Kyle J in there. We got 2 spots left. Maybe get a kicker here. Maybe Butker. 6,800. That's not bad. Kittle. It's not terrible. So no quarterbacks though. For a single entry, I don't know if I want to do that, but McCaffrey, Kelsey, Debo, Kyle J, Butker, Kittle. These are probably the kind of lineups you got to build. You got to be a little bit more willing to just go middle of the road with some of these guys. I don't know, man. This is just another reason why I just don't love him at captain. I hope it doesn't bite me in the ass. It very well could. All right, let's build some tournament lineups. Let's build one tournament lineup here. We got to go Kelsey, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so Kelsey, Mahomes, right? Now look, I don't think you have to play Mahomes with Kelsey, especially if he's in Kelsey's in the captain, but I think we're probably smart to start that way. Now, instead of Mahomes, you probably could go to Pacheco, maybe, if you're feeling it. But we got 6K a piece with 4 spots left. So I think we're going to have to punt once, and maybe we can pay up for McCaffrey here. We're going to have to, right? I mean, we don't have to, but in this situation, let's try to get McCaffrey in. And what does that do to us? 4K. So we got Mahomes, Kelsey. Let's try to get another pass catcher for Mahomes in here. Does it matter who? Noah Gray, 1,800, or do you want to just say screw it completely and go down to like Richie James or something?
No, yeah, it could be. For single entry, I think I'd rather go Richie James. I'd rather pay down.
This is a tournament. We want to do a tournament build.
Oh,
here.
yeah. Then, tournament build, I'd go Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but throw in Noah Gray because we can always go down to CH if we need to.
Okay, 5,100. That's not bad. That means if we get a kicker here, we're probably going to have to. We can't get 2 kickers. So we might as well either pay all the way down to one of these other scrubs or just pay up and punt.
Yeah, I think so. Just throw in Kittle, and that's going to put us in a weird range. So let's see what we have left. 3,900.
Yeah, Chiefs, MVS. Let's just go all the way up, dude. Let's go to Debo.
Yeah.
And leaves us with 1,100. Kyle J, Richie James. In this situation, this would be a 3-3. But we have Noah Gray and Kyle J in the same lineup. That's a little scary. But hey, it's a tournament build. That might be okay. So let's build one with Kelsey without CMC in the flex. You want to try that, or do you want to go without Mahomes?
Let's do it without Mahomes. Let's try CMC and Purdy.
Okay.
And then Pacheco?
Yeah, let's do that. 2,300. So 2,300 for each position here. Double punt. But then you run into, this is we probably don't want to get two Chiefs guys because we don't have Patrick Mahomes and he's going to be a pass catcher. Let's just let's assume that our boy, where's he at? $200 McKinnon. Let's just say he's active, right? I already said I'm going to lose a shitload of money playing him, so if he's active, let's try it out and see if it even works for us. 4,500 in the last spot. 49ers defense, Jennings. I don't hate the 49ers defense, but maybe Jennings in a tournament build. I don't love him, but these are the kind of builds that I think we're going to have to get to, man. You want to try anything else?
All right. Yeah, this might be a little crazy, but just pull out Purdy and throw in Debo.
All right.
I didn't think getting to less quarterbacks was going to be the answer here today. And then you got Butker. You know what I mean? Like throwing a kicker.
You could go Moody or Butker. Let's just go Butker here. Let's do a 4-2. Kelsey, McCaffrey, Debo, Pacheco, McKinnon, Butker. And look, you could pull McKinnon out and go with a Richie James or, whoever. It's probably the only other guys I'd play with here. I know that Chris Conley is there, but with all the wide receivers healthy, I'm probably not touching him. Like I said, if you guys want to see more building here, make sure you guys join the YouTube members, and we'll put out that show on Saturday. Ellie, what'd you learn, man? And what are your thoughts on final score and stuff here?
Learned that no quarterback might be an interesting strategy for Sunday, but interesting and scary they go hand in hand in that particular case. For the score, I think we're going to have 31-27 Kansas City. And I think Kyle J actually is our, what do we call him? Douchebag of the day?
Dirtbag of the day. Yeah, douchebag, dirtbag.
Dirtbag of the day.
Yeah. I'm thinking... Man, I know I said in the opener I wasn't going to go against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs again. I got to do it, man. 24-21 San Francisco. I'm probably going to regret it, but I just want to see the 49ers win this one. The Chiefs will be back. They'll be back. Give it to the 49ers here. Anything else to leave with? Like, basically, make your decision on what you're going to do with CMC. Whether or not you're going to play him in the captain or not. If you do, you're going to have to go middle of the road. You probably can't play two quarterbacks. You're probably going to play maybe even zero quarterbacks could be a route to take. What is going to be your process? Like as over the next few days, as we're getting closer and you're ruminating all this information, what is your process going to be? And what are you going to kind of like, do you have any checks that you're going to be making? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, really just kind of just building in SaberSim and just getting an idea of what my exposures look like. I think the biggest thing here is just keeping an eye on your salary, right? We saw how easy it is to try and force in guys like MBS over even like Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Kyle Juszczyk. It's like just because they cost more doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do anything on the field. So, don't hesitate to pay down a little bit in some of those scenarios. But other than that, man, like just hop in the Discord, guys. Like we have a really good group of guys in there, or gals, whomever, people in general in there, chopping it up. And there's a lot of positive feedback in there. We'll constantly reviewing each other's lineups and shit like that. So we can actually talk out our processes a little bit cleaner there. So hop in, get ready for UFO.
Make sure you guys subscribe. We appreciate you for another good season of NFL. We will see you guys next year. And for members, we'll see you on Saturday.